Married couples of AskWomen. What's that moment which made you go, okay, I'm gonna marry her, him? I lost my brother just after we met and we became good friends after that, with him being a huge support while I was grieving. Close to the year anniversary of my brother's death we had moved forward in our relationship and were living together by that time. I bought some milk from the grocery store and checked the date when I did it and, somewhat passively, noted that the expiration date was the anniversary of my brother's death and pretty much forgot about it. A few days later I went to put milk in my coffee and saw that the date on the milk had been scribbled out with Sharpie. I immediately knew he had done it just so I wouldn't have to be reminded of that day. I remember bursting into tears and taking the carton into our bedroom, waking him up sobbing oxygen monohydride. My God, did you do this? You are the sweetest, most thoughtful person. It was a time of big emotions. To which he groggily replied, damn it. My goal was to prevent you from crying before promptly falling back asleep for another half hour. It just made such a huge impression on me that he cared about all the little stuff. He had seen me go through so much grief already, any bit he could spare me was effort worth making, and the reality of having someone care so much about me was sweet and very overwhelming. About a month after we started dating when I realized he wasn't just laughing at my really terrible jokes just to make me feel good and genuinely thought I was hilarious. I believe it was right after my 2 fish are in a tank. One looked at the other and said, you man the guns, all drive joke. We lived on different continents and I had less vacation days than him, so when he came over to visit me, I still had to work. He made me a packed lunch the first day while I was getting ready for work. I didn't ask him to, and I usually forgot to eat or skipped lunch. My heart melted when he handed the bag to me as I walked out the door. He had even drawn a little bunny, his nickname for me, on the sandwich wrap. I grew up with not very engaged parents and was used to being very independent and fending for myself. Food was always last on my priority list. With him, food love. He continues feeding me delicious food, and love, today, 15 years later. I was talking to a friend one night and we were both friends with my now husband. We were talking about the future and she said that her kids would refer to him as Uncle John. And without even thinking about it, I felt like mine would call him Dad. It was a strange moment. I realized I loved him more than just my best friend. Turns out he loved me for even longer. My brother had a mental health crisis and can't really work full-time. My parents are able to help him out, but I was on the phone with my mom and crying about how one day it'll just be me. My brother is my only sibling. My brother will probably need to live in the same town as me if not with me. And my, now husband, didn't hesitate. Of course he'd live with us, no question, I wouldn't expect anything else. I knew he was the one to build a family with. We met in a chat room back in 2004. He private messaged me referencing something I'd said in the room. I made a joke that could have been just a comment and he not only picked up on it but threw something funnier back at me. I felt this weird connection, like we got each other. I typed out, I'm gonna marry you one day, and then I deleted it, because I thought that'd probably freak him out. But really, a deep gut feeling. I moved continents to be with him and we did a visa marriage in 2009 followed by the marriage we wanted in front of family and close friends in 2013. We've got 3 kids and I'll never love anyone else the way I love him. It was meant to be. Pretty much within a few months of meeting him I knew I'd marry him. There wasn't anything specific. He was just the first guy the first truly felt comfortable with and trusted. I couldn't get enough of him and wanted to wake up next to him every day. 10 years on, we're expecting our first baby in a few months and I still feel a warm glow when I wake up and see him there. So many moments made me love him, but I knew he was the one when my big brother, who is incredibly shy, extremely slow to warm up to people, and generally keeps his opinion of people to himself, causally said, he's good people. I hope he stays around a while. May not seem like much, but that is huge praise and spoke volumes to me about the quality of my partner. Before I met my husband I avoided conflict like the plague. About 3 to 4 months into our relationship we got into a huge fight, about what I don't remember, and he suggested we go on a walk and talk it out. I didn't want to talk, at all. I ended up speed walking like 100 feet ahead of him because I didn't want to talk it out. No one else I had dated before cared enough to talk about our issues or actually ask me why I felt the way I did, so I always ran away, something I was attempting to do in that moment as well. My now husband states from behind me that all I am proving right now is that I can walk faster than him and to please come back and talk to him or just walk with him. He fought for us and I knew that he wasn't going anywhere. That's when I knew he was the one. Edit. I appreciate all the wonderfully kind comments regarding this moment. He is my steadfast sweetheart who never gives up on us. I am so grateful he called me out on my speedy feet almost 8 years ago. On our first date, which just so happened to be on Valentine's Day. There was a lot that happened, but there were 2 moments where I knew this guy was something else. First moment was at a bar, ordered some drinks and he got up to go to the bathroom. While he was gone, I decided to check out what was on Imgur Reddit on my phone, came across this post of SpongeBob-themed Valentine's Day cards and started laughing out loud. He came back and asked what was so funny, so without thinking I just handed him my phone to see. I immediately regretted this because I never met this guy before that day and all I could think was, you frickin' idiot, why did you do that? He probably thinks you're a weirdo that's obsessed with SpongeBob, or worse, he doesn't understand memes. Thankfully he started laughing at the pic and asked me, hey, do you remember that Krusty Krab training episode? That was the best one. The other moment was towards the end of that first date. We were stopped at an unusually long red light, so he thought this was the perfect moment for a first kiss. Apparently in his head, he pictured himself leaning back into his seat, with one hand on the wheel, looking at me sexily like this and saying to be in a deep voice, you should let me give you a kiss. But what really happened was he tensed up with both hands on the wheel at 10-2. Asked in a high-pitched voice, can I kiss, you? With this expression on his face. I laughed so damn hard that he slammed his face into his hands from embarrassment. Of course I had to kiss him because it was so dorky and it was the best kiss I ever had. We're not married yet, but we will be this Feb 14, which is our 5-year anniversary. On our first date, we went out for coffee and we were both nervous. Met online and spent weeks talking before we went out. He was trying to drink, but spilled a little. I giggled, and our conversation went like this. Him. Oh sorry, I have a drinking problem. Me. Are you nervous? Is this your first time? Him. No, I've been nervous lots of times. For those who don't know, this is in reference to the movie, Airplane. Until him, I had never met anyone else who had seen the movie, let alone know it well enough to quote. After our exchange we both just looked at each other and knew. It's sappy as hell, I know. But that was years ago and we've never had a doubt. Almost from the moment we met. My previous relationships had all been slow burners. I knew the guy was interested in me, so I went along with things, but there was no real spark. With my husband, from the moment we met I was pretty blown away, we just clicked. On our second date he jokingly proposed to me and I said yes. We both fell in love hard and fast and it has 100% been worth it. He is truly amazing. A month after we started dating I was in a serious car accident and he helped me through everything. That's what made me realize I had found the person who's going to be there for me when I need it the most. That was 3 years ago and he is still the man that shows up when I need him the most. We'd been dating maybe 2 months. I was scheduled to take the NCLEX, nursing license exam, a few hours away. He woke up before dawn, got an oil change he was overdue for so he felt he could safely drive the distance, and came to my house to pick me up. He drove me to my exam so I could study on the way there. He waited for me to take my test, then took me to a nearby retail outlet and was an enthusiastic shopping partner for the rest of the day before driving me home. It's worth noting that day is also the day my mother decided he was the one. Been together 11 years, married for 6. He brought me all the carbs. I was a staunchly single independent woman, but we had been hooking up for about a week or so and I actually didn't want him to leave, to my own surprise. I had told him I didn't have feelings, but I was glad we were friends and having fun hooking up. Well, he went home to NYC and I joked about missing the pizza and bagels. LA just ain't the same. A week later he shows up on my doorstep with not 1 but 2 whole NY pizzas, and a baker's dozen of NY bagels, which he brought carry-on the plane. We eloped a week later, with the intention to divorce, so we could call ourselves divorcees as a joke, but I told him I didn't want to actually get a divorce. We celebrated our first wedding anniversary 6 days ago. He is my rock and it's going great. So when my partner and I got together we were just hanging out, in what we both acknowledged was more than friends but not a relationship. I had just left a long-term thing and he had never had a relationship, so we were both nervous. About 2 months in of not being in a relationship, I turned to him one day and said, "You know I'm your girlfriend, don't you?" And he said yeah, smiled and kissed me. So that was that. We started out as friends, but when things took a romantic turn, it was like lightning struck. Everything moved so quickly. We clicked on almost every level. We had similar goals, similar desires. We had a couple conversations about how fast we were moving and neither of us had second thoughts. About 4 weeks after we started dating, we took a 15-hour road trip to watch the space shuttle launch at night. That trip sealed it for me. We travel well together. Conversation flowed well, we are comfortable in silence, and most of all I feel comfortable enough while he is driving that I can nap. That was it. I knew he was the one. We were married 8 months later and will celebrate our 11th anniversary in February. The first time I spent the night over at his house, I woke up at 4 in the morning with indescribable pain. It was so bad I thought I was dying. I woke him up and told him we needed to go to the hospital right now. Until this point I had never gone to the emergency room, that's how bad this was. He immediately went into action, protection mode, and got me to the ER in record time. Turns out I had kidney stones. I felt so gross and disgusting sitting in a hospital gown, hair a mess, etc., but he kept telling me how cute and beautiful I was. He took me back to his house and was so attentive in getting me back to health. After 2 more days the stones passed and I went back to my house. I told my friends that he was 100% husband material, which they thought was weird seeing as we had only been casually dating for like a month. I was really serious about him after that. It's been 7 years now and we got married last summer. Best thing I ever did. I got lice somehow, which I was really embarrassed and upset about. He stayed home from work all day, combed them all out of my hair, and acted like it wasn't a big deal. 100% would marry all over again. Edit. He reminded me that he did ask for payment. That he would be allowed to eat all the lice he killed. Like an ape. I'm commenting so that I can ask my fiancé and get back to you with both our answers. Edit. My answer. I knew it when we were out bowling one night, I think 4 or 5 months into the relationship. He's killer and I suck, but I still had so much fun, and we were both on the same page with our life plans, certain amount of kids, religious, political beliefs, etc. I know it's ridiculously early to say that, but that night we were both drinking and I remember telling him I wanted to marry him eventually. Edit. Back with his 2 answers. First he thought I was asking when he fell in love with me, and that answer was during orchestra rehearsal in college. He was first chair clarinet, I was second chair. We were taking Snapchats, which I still have saved, and joking around while the conductor worked with another section for like 30 minutes. He says in that moment he knew he was in love with me because he'd never been so comfortable around someone and he knew he could be 100% himself, weirdness, silliness and all. Second answer for the actual question was he knew during our first New Year's together, 3 months in, while he was on the receiving end of a drunk live speech from my aunt's boyfriend. Something drunk uncle said just made sense to him. It was something along the lines of how happy drunk uncle was for us and that if you find true love you should always want to cling to it. And fiancé said something along the lines of even if I'm uncomfortable being around or with everyone else, I'm comfortable around you and that's what matters. And also says that there were moments all along the way that reaffirmed it. Final edit. We are watching Jeopardy and I correctly guessed the word demagogue for a $1,000 question. He says this is his new moment. He took me to a national park. I made a joke about a steep cliff being a good place to throw a dead body. He agreed. It was a slow feeling, but I recall the moment where I was like, this is the perfect person for me, easily. We were backpacking through Yosemite. It was our first day and we had to reach a certain zone to set up camp. We're from Michigan and not at all used to elevation, so we basically hopped off the plane then climbed thousands of feet and I was really struggling. He was so incredible patient and just kept lightly. He knew I would have gotten angry with Atta girls, encouraging me, and it was one of the most reassuring feelings I have ever had. I couldn't help but think, if this person could help me climb what felt like mountains, then what can't we do together? That was when I knew.